Okay, you start a sentence in a meeting, 4 words in, somebody rolls straight over the top of you, and you stop. Every time you stop, here's what you say instead, and you say it without heat, without apology, and without raising your voice at all. Hold on, one more sentence and it's yours. Don't forget the body language. 8 words. Hold on, one more sentence and it's yours. Nobody can be offended by that because you just promised to give it straight back. Now, there are 3 things that I promised to give you in this video, okay? And here they are. Number 1, the pause you've been waiting for. That little gap where it's finally your turn does not exist. It has never existed. Not in any meeting you have ever sat in. And once you know what's actually happening in that room instead, you will understand why waiting politely has never worked and never will. Okay? Number 2, you are not being interrupted. I know how that sounds, but you are being taken up on an offer, one you have been making out loud several times a minute without even knowing it. I'll play you the exact sound, okay? And number 3, this is the move for when it's the same person every single time. It ends it without one confrontation, without one difficult conversation, and they never even know what happened, okay? That's at the end. So, let's start with what you're doing right now because it's the most decent instinct in the room and it's costing you your career. You're queuing. So, you were taught this. Don't interrupt. Wait your turn. Let people finish. And it's good manners, it genuinely is, but in a room where everybody is doing it, it works beautifully. However, that is not the room you're in, okay? In meetings, roughly 2 people are queuing and everybody else is just going, which means the queue isn't a queue. It's just you, standing still, watching other people go. And here's what it looks like from the outside. And this is the part that stings. So I'm just going to say it plainly. It does not look patient. It does not look respectful. From the outside, a person who never takes the floor looks like a person who doesn't have much to say. That is not fair. It isn't true. And it is exactly how it reads. So make sure to subscribe because I'm doing 3 of these a week on the situations that quietly decide careers. Now, here's what you've been waiting for. You have been waiting for a gap, a pause, a moment where the person stops and the floor is clearly free, and it's obviously your turn. Here's the thing about that gap. In ordinary conversation, the space between one person finishing and the next person starting is about 0.2 of a second. 0.2. That's not a pause. That is not enough time to decide anything, let alone take a breath, gather yourself, and begin. Which raises an obvious question. If the gap is that small, how does anybody get in at all? And the answer is the whole video. They don't wait for you to stop. They predict when you're going to stop. All right? Everybody in that room is running a continuous forecast on your sentence. From your grammar, your rhythm, from the direction your pitch is traveling, their brain is projecting the ending. And it launches at that ending. Sometimes the hair before it. That's not rudeness. That's just how human conversation is built. That's why people talk over each other on the phone. Why 2 people apologize at once. Why nobody ever actually finishes a sentence at a dinner party. We are all constantly guessing where each other's sentences end. So, if you're sitting there waiting for a silence, you are waiting for a thing that this room does not produce. You will wait forever and it feels like nobody wants to hear from you. And that is not what's happening at all. Which brings us to the offer. If everybody's brain is forecasting your ending, then the signals you send about your ending are the most powerful thing you do in that room. And most people who get talked over are sending, "I'm finished," constantly, without ever meaning it. Let me tell you 3 of them. Listen for yourself in these, okay? Number 1, the trail off. You start strong and the last 3 words get quieter, slower, and lower. So I think we should probably look at the timeline again. You faded. Fading is the universal sound of a finished sentence. Number 2, the upward tilt. You end on a rise like a question, even though it's a statement, because the numbers came in late. That's not a full stop. That's you handing it over and asking somebody to catch it, and somebody always does. And number 3, the breath. You run out of air and you take a big one in the middle of your thought. That inhale is the loudest end of turn signal there is. Everybody in that room hears the door open. So here's the sentence that I want you to keep. You are not being interrupted. You are being taken up on an offer you didn't even know you were making. And I'd like to be careful because I know this is not your fault. Some people are rude. Some rooms are badly run. And some rooms are about who gets listened to and who doesn't, and that's real. But this part, this is yours. This you can change on Thursday without anybody's permission, without one difficult conversation. So, 2 fixes. Getting in and staying in. Here's what you do to get in. You don't wait. You come in on the projection and you say it, just like everybody else, but you make it polite by announcing it. I want to add one thing before we move on. That's the claim. One thing is a promise of brevity, so nobody resents it. Before we move on, creates urgency. The window is closing and you're helping. Notice that you did not ask. You did not say, could I just... We'll come back to that one, okay? And staying in. The floor gets taken from your mid-thought because your first sentence sounds complete. So don't let it. Number it. There are 2 things here. First, that's the hold. You just told every forecasting brain in that room that the ending is not here yet. It's after second. That is a fence around your turn, and it holds. Because now anybody who comes in over you is visibly cutting you off in front of everybody, and people don't like doing that where it can be seen. 2 things, not 4. 4 is a speech, and the room will start looking for an exit for you. Now, the reason none of this will happen on Thursday unless you do something tonight, the trail off and the tilt are not decisions. They are motor habits. They live in the same place that your handwriting lives, for example. You can't think your way out of the mid-meeting because you'll be busy thinking about the actual content. So you train the ending once, where it costs nothing, 4 minutes. Inside my course, for example, there's a practice partner. Type in the real thing that you're bringing to the meeting this week and say it out loud. And listen only to your last 4 words, not the content, the landing. Say it again and put the pitch down at the end. Do it again, do it again, do it again. You'll hear it flip somewhere around the 5th rep. That is going to be the sound of a sentence that doesn't get taken. There are 30 plus situations in there and they are all word for word. The link is below. Now, it happens anyway. You're in mid-sentence. Now somebody's on top of you. Hold on. One more sentence and it's yours. That's the return. 4 things in it, all deliberate. I'm going to go through them one by one, okay? Number 1, hold on with a stop gesture, 2 syllables, hard consonants, cuts through, not sorry, not if I could just. Those are apologies, and an apology signals low status to every brain in that room in about 1/10 of a second, okay? One more sentence. A defined, tiny, reasonable ask. Nobody refuses 1 sentence. And it's yours. This is the part that makes it work. You're not fighting them for the floor. You're scheduling them. You just promised to hand it over. That converts you now from an obstacle to the person running the handoff. And then say 1 sentence. 1. If you take 4, you have broken the deal, and the next time it will not work. So pause this now. Just do one thing for me, okay? In the comments, how many times did you get cut off in your last meeting? Just give me the number. That's it. 2, 5. I stopped counting. I read these. And when the same things keep showing up, it becomes the next video. That's where these come from. Okay, so go on. It helps not just you, but it helps everybody. Now for the one when it's the same person in every meeting, every time. Most people try 2 things. They get louder, which turns into a contest, and now the room has a conflict to think about instead of your idea. Don't do that. Or they take that person aside for that difficult conversation, which sometimes works and often makes it worse because now it's personal and they're watching you. There's a 3rd way, and it costs you nothing. The second they come over the top of you, you stop instantly, no struggle, and you say warmly, go ahead. And you stop talking and you look at them and you wait. Then, when they finish, they will finish faster than usual because being watched makes people brief. And you say, now the point I was making, the yield and return. Here's why that is so much stronger than fighting about it, because the room can't see an interruption. It happens too fast. And everybody's only half listening anyway. But everybody sees a stop and a return. When you go quiet mid-sentence and you turn and wait, you have made the interruption visible without saying one word about it. And then you come back and you finish anyway, which means it did not work. They paid the social cost of being seen doing it, and they got nothing. Do that twice and they will stop. Not because you had a hard conversation, but because it stopped being worth it for them. And you never accused anybody of anything. But the behavior will end. So, subscribe, because next week, it's about phrases people use at work that sound polite and are not. But here's the last pattern, and it's the smallest one. End on purpose. That's my recommendation. That's it for me. That's called a landing. Most people leak out of turn. They trail off and they hope that somebody responds. And the room isn't sure if you're finished or not, so the conversation just drifts to whoever speaks next. When you declare the end, two things happen. You control the handoff instead of leaking it. And an explicit ending makes what came before it sound like a position rather than some thoughts, same words, completely different weight. And you have just taken back the one thing that everyone else takes for granted. You decided when you were finished. One last thing. This is not so much tactical, but if this has been happening to you for years, the real damage is not the meetings. It's what it slowly teaches you. Because after enough of it, you stop preparing the point as carefully. You start editing yourself before you speak, deciding in advance, is this worth the trouble? And eventually, you start believing that the room was right about you. It wasn't. The people taking the floor in your meetings are not more valuable than you are. Most of them are not smarter than you are. They're just less polite than you are. That's the entire difference. And it's a much smaller thing than you have been treating it as, okay? Your silence is not humility. I want to be careful here because it feels like humility sometimes and decency, like not needing to be the center of things. It feels like that's a virtue, but withholding something the room needs is not generous. It's just quiet and it's selfish. And quiet and selfish does not help anybody, especially when you are sending signals to yourself that you do not deserve the same spot at the table as they do. The table that you have been invited to. The table that everybody else is enjoying. Remember, we believe we are because of how we behave. Being loud is not the point. But you have to believe that what you have got is worth the next 20 seconds of the room's attention. And a person who genuinely believes that never has to raise their voice in the meeting. So the next time you open your mouth and somebody drives over it, I want to add one thing before we move on. There are two things here. First, hold on, one more sentence and it's yours. Go ahead. Now, the point I was making. That's my recommendation. That's it for me. Stop queuing. Come in on purpose. Don't fade at the end and decide for yourself when you are finished. And train the ending tonight. 4 minutes out loud, listening only to your last 4 words. Practice it risk-free. Use it when it's expensive. The link is below. I'm Dan O'Connor. And if you know somebody who hasn't finished a sentence in a meeting in 2 years, send this to them. They've stopped noticing it's happening. Send it to them before the meeting. And remember that there's nothing you have to say that you can't say in a more loving way. The link for the full course is in the description below. Go ahead and click on that. Let me know if you have any questions, okay? Stop defending yourself and start loving yourself. You deserve that.